Justine Ginsberg, and welcome to Health Matters. In the state of Connecticut, 14% of our population are over the age of 65. Of our senior population, over 29% live alone, and 22% are veterans. Living alone can be challenging at any age, but the difficulties can increase as we age due to the additional complications like lack of transportation, medical conditions, and reduced social opportunities. Reduced household income can add additional pressures, with over 30% of Connecticut residents 60 years or over having received food stamps in the last 12 months. Today, joining us is Nancy Scheetz, the Executive Director of the Farmington Valley VNA. Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you, Justine. It's great to be here.
It's wonderful to have you back on Health Matters. So, as the viewers know at home, I tend to just like to have a conversation. I like to think
for me.
The viewers are in our living room.
That's good.
So, Nancy, as we age, loneliness becomes such a huge complication for everybody's life, but particularly if we live alone.
Right.
Can we talk a little bit about what this means to our mental health and to our physical health?
Sure. You know, a lot of people want to stay in their homes because that's what they know. And if they're not trying to make the active choice to leave, then they wind up being in situations where if they've lost a spouse or they've lost friends or people have changed in the community, before you know it, you're in your own home and you are by yourself. And as you age, you have changes in terms of your ability to get out or to be a part of things. And before you know it, you have less and less of a willingness, less energy, less ability, and you're alone. And we're not, like it or not, whether we're as social as you and I, or maybe, you know, somebody who does things a little bit lower key, we're still meant to interact with each other. We're human beings. We're not born on an isolated island somewhere by ourselves. We need interaction to thrive. And when you don't have that, you really start to decrease in your capacities in a number of ways. Aside from, you know, mental acuity, you know, having someone to talk with and to keep your brain kind of going and being used, you really begin to, isolation can lead to depression. Isolation and loneliness really can sadden you. And so many other things develop from there. It's just, you're not meant to be alone.
No, and you know, often one of the things that we hear the sort of the sandwich generation speak about, so that's the generation for folks at home that are both the caregivers of young people and then the caregivers of older people. We often hear that sandwich generation talking about the fact that mum or dad, now they're living alone, worry a lot. They become very fixated on certain things and they become very concerned about what's happening in the world or what's happening about a particular thing. You know, the more time we have on our hands, the more time we have to worry. You know, one of the things we know is when you've got another purpose, you know, there's just less time to be thinking about things that are perhaps not as important.
That's right. Well, and that's part of the difficulty. When you are home and you are isolated and you have less of a connection to the outside world, then you not only focus on yourself, but you focus on everything else around you. You focus on what you hear on television. You worry, you start taking on the worries for your family. And you, if you go to call somebody and they don't answer the phone, immediately something must be devastating. Must be wrong. You must be in the hospital. Lord knows, if I don't answer the phone when my mother calls, well, where were you? Were you all right? I could tell every phone I have starts to ring because it's her. It's just, you know, it is what you do. You have more time on your hands, and so unfortunately you start to ruminate, and you know, because your brain isn't being focused on other things and called to focus on other things or be accountable, then you just have time to think about thinking.
Absolutely.
And that's just such a vicious cycle.
It is, and you know, when you think about the Western society, which is so non-traditional, when we think about particularly Eastern lifestyles, where you age with your family. You have a purpose at all times, whether you are the young caregiving generation or when you become grandma and grandpa and mum and dad are out working, you're still looking after kids, you've got a role, you're very much in the middle of family life. Here in the United States and in the developed world, our elderly population, because we're living longer, really are left alone. The family grows up, they move on, and then you're left in that family home which you often don't want to leave because of the memories associated with that.
Right.
You know, perhaps it is the place you raised your children. It's the one place you feel safe.
Right.
But then your community starts changing around you.
Right.
And then all those little ties that
Right.
keep you connected
Right.
to community start to dissipate.
Right.
So when we think of, that's the mental health side of isolation, we also have a physical side, and our mental health inadvertently or advertently affects our physical health.
It does.
Can we talk about how sometimes this can start to affect us as we age?
So the more you become isolated, the lonelier you become, the sadder your mood becomes, you tend to have less energy. Your energy levels aren't going to keep you as up to date with cooking, cleaning, taking care of your own health. It's easy, if life gets monotonous, to not even take care of remembering, did I take my medicine this morning? Did I not? When was the last time I took a shower? And the more you let those things start to slide, the more you're open up to risk in terms of health.
Absolutely.
You know, so many things can get worse when you don't have the proper nutrition. You're not eating right. You're not drinking right. You maybe are losing your ability to sleep a good sleep cycle where, well, you took a nap in the afternoon and then you're up all night long. And then you get tired and your body gets run down. So many physical ailments get worse.
Absolutely.
And it's just simple to have things snowball out of control.
Absolutely. And look, you know, speaking of snowballs.
Yeah, the snow is coming.
The snow is coming.
The snow is coming.
The snow is coming.
Oh, I know.
Which is both a wonderful and a miserable thing in the one head.
Is.
And if you are alone,
Yes.
and if you live in the Farmington Valley,
Yes.
and transportation, let's face it, is
Right.
not great.
Right.
And if you don't drive,
Right.
and you don't live with family, now you've got ice, now
Right.
you've got snow, now
Right.
you've got it gets dark earlier.
Right.
Your ability to get out and move
Right.
around just starts getting reduced and reduced. You know, I'm sure from the VNA's perspective, in the home help you give,
Yeah.
you would see an increase in people's depression over the wintertime.
Indeed. Well, and it's known. I mean, it's certainly well documented that seasonally people become more depressed. We certainly have special diagnoses where we call it seasonal affective disorder. But the sun, while it has its risks, the sun gives us an awful lot of benefit.
Yeah.
And when it goes away, just mentally for me, I look out the window and I'm like, it's already dark. How could that be? And yet in the spring, when it starts to stay lighter longer, your mood immediately raises. And you know, unfortunately, in the darkness, in the cold, and you know, people's eyesight and vision changes. Driving at nighttime is bothersome. A lot of people aren't going to want to choose to do that. And when you have longer periods of the day that are dark, you're going to have less opportunity to go out. Reaction time changes. While nobody wants to have their license taken away, a lot of people voluntarily, just all of a sudden, they don't drive. Yeah. And you're right. Then you get bad weather, tough roads. We don't have lots of lighting. It makes it so easy to, before you know it, feel as if you're trapped in your own home and you can't get out and you don't get all of the right shopping even done.
Absolutely.
It's just one thing leads to another.
And you know, when we think about, you know, getting out and about, and you know, for the sandwich generation, for those of us that are still out and about and working and moving around, you know, think about your elderly neighbours. And even though they might be out, you know, gardening during the summer and the spring, there's that opportunity to be safe outside. When the winter comes, more than ever, they need connection. They need someone to check in on them. You know, the ability to jump onto the senior bus and go to the senior centre is even diminished. People just lock themselves away. And how do you know if your neighbours are safe if you don't check on them? So we're going to talk a little more about preparing for wintertime, but, you know, it's always important for us to look out for one another. One of the things you mentioned about cooking. Nutrition, and both of us are nurses, and both of us know that, you know, we think nutrition is, you know, vitally important when we're, you know, young mums and, you know, we're breastfeeding and, you know, we need to have good, healthy, balanced diets running around after little people. And then somehow we forget that food is so vitally important. And there's a huge change that happens in the human body as we age, and our need for nutrients suddenly alters. And more than ever, having a healthy, balanced diet and not maybe a huge meal at night, but multiple grazings.
Right.
You know, can we talk a little bit about those challenges when you're alone and you don't want to cook?
Right. Well, you know, I think it's interesting because a lot of people start to kind of slump into habits that aren't so great. Certainly, sometimes affected by the fact that maybe income is less.
Yes.
But there are easier ways to take a look at if my income is lower or it might be restricted. It doesn't mean you can't eat healthy and or organically. You just have to kind of think about it. And I don't think I know a single senior center or social services department in the Valley that doesn't have food and nutrition classes. They don't have programs that dietitians come to say, hey, it's the holidays. Here's how to eat low, on a low budget, but healthy. Yeah. Here's how to, you know, does it require better planning where maybe you do make Sunday is the day you cook and you've got your meals kind of spaced out for the week. Are there traditional ways that you could take a look at, well, I want to eat on the go and I want to eat in small meals, so if I was going to have healthier snacks, how do I do that? How do I eat efficiently and in a healthy way, but it's not going to, I don't have to spend a ton of money doing so. It doesn't also have to be hard and complex, because today there are better things to choose, and I think people are health conscious to an extent. I think we try to be. Yeah. But it doesn't mean that you can't do a fast food type of way to do that in the right way. You just have to learn about it, and you just have to plan for it. And there are, even today, and it really is not a cost, you know, prohibitive process. Meals and food can get delivered to you. Yeah. And there are so many of services that design food that are healthy because they know people with chronic illnesses. The better nutrition, the better apt you are to get healthier, stay healthier, recover quicker. Absolutely. You know, in the Valley, there's even organizations like Healing Meals that traditionally will take a look at individuals recovering from illnesses and know the vital importance of a nutrient-enriched type of food menu plan, and they'll bring it to you if you qualify. You have to just know where to reach out. And most health social services departments are all going to know that answer. Oh, absolutely. And look, I think the other thing that's important too for folks that are living alone is sometimes speaking up. You know, often our pride gets in the way, and we make out that we're doing a lot better than we are. Right. And you know, sometimes the simplest thing that your family can do, so they mightn't be able to visit you every week, and they mightn't be able to cook you a meal every night, but if you've got, you know, family or friends that do a big cook on a Saturday or a Sunday, freeze. Right. You know, make a couple of extra portions of a stew or a soup, pop that in the freezer. You've got a quick, easy, healthy meal that you don't have to worry about, you know, wastage. Right. And it's nourishing, and you know, the most you have to do is actually put it in a microwave. Exactly, you have to thaw. All of the different nutritional plans I've done over the years to try to get myself back onto eating healthy. Sunday is meal preparation day, and you really lay it out for almost the week where it's just done. You know, and it's a less of a worry, and it's not that complicated. Absolutely. And look, looking at the fact we're living alone, so we've talked a little bit about nutrition. Now let's talk about the fact that as we age 65 plus, the chances of us having being a person who suffers from polypharmacy, so from those at home, more than one prescription medication, and let's throw in the over-the-counter medications as well. Oh Lord, because everybody has a bunch. And you know, let's face it, you go to most people's homes, you open their medicine cabinet. I mean, it's a nightmare. Bottles full. The older we get, the more bottles we have. So when you've got a partner in crime, sometimes it's easier to remember, you know, Nancy, did you take your meds this morning? Exactly. No, Justine, I didn't. Did you take yours? I did. Now you're alone. Right. How do we handle this? Right. How do we deal with not just the polypharmacy, so the multiple meds, and not just the remembering to take them, but what about when they're not working, or the side effects? Right, right. Medicine is a complicated world. There are so many new medicines every day. We're bombarded with commercials. We see products that are natural remedies or herbs or all kinds of things that, well, if we did this, this will happen. You know, anything you ingest it brings about a chemical response, whether it's naturally occurring or made in a pharmaceutical company. So understand this, that if you take something, it's going to affect you in a certain way. That's why you took it. It is. And so, you know, unfortunately, people fail to, well, but it's a natural, it's just it doesn't matter. You did it for a reason, and it's supposed to cause a reaction in your system. Albeit maybe a good one. But you really need to have at least one person know everything that you do. I don't care if it's your naturopath, I don't care if it's your nurse practitioner or your physician, somebody. If you get confused, if you're not sure, one of the best resources is the pharmacist.
Yes.
There isn't a single thing they're not going to answer for you. And look up. They have in their database, only if you tell them that, all right, you take this medicine, it interacts with this one. Oh, what you told me that you're taking that supplement, it's not a good idea. It all has to kind of be known. There's ways to get organized. You can have pill boxes. You can have visiting nurses come in just to help give you an assessment. The nurses within your physician practices probably can help you organize that. They can label the boxes. They can pour them out for you. You could have a morning set of boxes and an afternoon box and an evening box. It is difficult to recall, but you have to be able to be upfront and honest. Just because it's not a prescription medicine, I also take Advil. How many times a day? 4. Well, how many pills do you take? Well, the bottle says 2, but 3 works better. Okay, then now you have an ulcer. Do you know why? And so, you know, it matters to tell me everything that you take. I want to know everything that you bought at CVS, everything that you got from your physician. And I think the other thing, too, that people have to be careful of is that oftentimes their doctors change their prescriptions. But they just paid all that money for the bottle they got 2 weeks ago. Yes. And they're going to, God bless them, not want to waste that. Absolutely. That was a lot of money. And they, even with their insurance plan, so they figure, well, I'll just keep taking that one till it's all done, and then I'll take this one. Please don't do that.
Or they'll double up.
They do. Well, you know, I have a new one. And before you know it, it's very confusing. And so you just need to always either consult your physician, whoever your practitioner is, and or the pharmacist.
Absolutely, and really understanding why you're taking your prescription meds. Because, you know, we regularly, when I used to work in accident and emergency, we would every week have multiple elderly brought in who doubled up on blood pressure drugs because they were under different names. So they were given a new one, they took the old one and the new one, and their blood pressure plummeted. So, you know, really being aware why I take it. And then if you're unwell or you're sick and you don't take a particular drug, that you let your physician know why.
Yes, exactly. Well, you know, one of the things we give out at the farm, at the VNA, and you can get them anywhere, it's really important to have a medicine card with you.
Absolutely.
Because again, most people are not going to remember names of medicines. Well, I take that white pill. The white pill, well, what does the white pill do for you? I'm not sure. But I think something is for my blood pressure, but that could be the red pill. Just write it down somewhere. Really, just have a list. If you're sophisticated and you have a smartphone, take a picture of it. That's fine with me too, because I don't know which white pill that is. Or tell me where your pharmacy is that you got it. I'll figure it out from there. But it really is important to at least also have an appreciation. If someone tells you to take something, maybe you're not going to remember a lot of things about it. What's it supposed to do for you? How are you supposed to know it's working? So when I ask you, how do you feel? Well, I don't know. I think I'm good. Are you better or are you not better? Absolutely. And honestly, it doesn't have to be sophisticated. You don't have to have the same knowledge that I do as a prescriber, but I need to understand from your perspective before I give you something else.
Are things shifting or
not? Is it getting better? Is the reason why we're doing this better? You're less dizzy? Okay, then I guess we're getting somewhere.
Absolutely.
And people have to take some accountability for knowing that. They can't just, well, my doctor said take it, so I'm taking it.
Well, and you know, I think so much of what we do has to be informed by how our clients feel. And, you know, we have a generation, our elderly generation, often don't feel they have the right to talk to a prescriber and to say, well, you know what, Nancy, you prescribed that for me and I've been taking that for 3 months and I don't feel any better. They feel that they're somehow being less than courteous, so they keep that to themselves. So, you know, one of the key notes for those at home is really speak up and and have an open and honest conversation with your providers.
Absolutely.
Equally, just backing up to that medication list. Again, if I had $1 for every time someone would be brought in an ambulance with a bag filled with pills, and I would be the nurse at the bedside, desperately searching through, trying to work out what is this person on, so that we could problem solve quickly while somebody's unstable in an emergency department. Having that card means that if you are transported for any reason, before you're even at the hospital, the ambulance have called through what your prescription list is. We know what the possible culprits could be. We're already on top of it. We know if you're on blood thinners. We know if you're diabetic. We're already beginning to problem solve before you present. So have that card. It's also called a file of life. You can get them at senior centres. You can get them at the Farmington Valley Health District. The VNA have them. Please talk to your local senior centres or your local resources, because this is the sort of stuff that really can save your life.
It really does. It really does.
We only, of course, we have so much fun. We've got like 3 minutes.
It's a blast talking with you, Justine.
Don't we have fun? So let's just, we're in winter time, and let's think about some, sick day preparation.
Oh,
so, we suddenly get the flu. I feel terrible. I'm just going to go to bed and sleep for a week. That's not helpful. What can I do to prepare my home for that time that I'm sick?
So I think one of the keys has to be, and I think sometimes we've lost sight of this. You have to know your neighborhood. You have to have your community. You really have to have a sense. I love in my community knowing who is it that lives around me that are older, that are by themselves, that might not get out, that the plow doesn't get there in the morning in a snowstorm because they figure, well, they're not going anywhere. I worry about my own parents, and if somehow they've got newer neighbors all around them, I make sure that my sister and I have met some of the neighbors because they check up on my parents, and they know at times, look, I can't get there, but I know the neighbor who can go right next door because my parents aren't answering the phone. You have to have emergency plans. You can easily get yourself ready, when it's nice and still warm out and you can get out, or you're going to go do shopping, or someone's going to shop for you. Think of a laundry list of things you want to have in your home. If you're going to lose power, if you need extra water, if you were not sure about the water source, you should have, there's so many emergency kits, and the Farmington Valley Health District has it. We certainly have it. There are ways that you could look at lists of things to have in your home for the winter, for when maybe the power goes out, or have a game plan of where you're going to go, who are you going to buddy up with.
Absolutely.
What little lady is down the street that maybe you don't love her, but the two of you are going to bite out the storm together.
Absolutely. And thinking about those sick days, having some frozen soups ready to go in case you're not well and you just need nutrition. Thinking you've got enough basic cold and flu remedies, some Tylenol on hand for when you've got a fever. You've got a thermometer. If you're a diabetic, that you have at least 2 weeks supply of insulin if you're insulin dependent. Because if you do get snowed in, you don't want to run out of a cardiac medication or something that's vitally important. Making sure you've got that emergency list of phone numbers to call as well. So Nancy, would you come back?
I would love to.
I think we have much more to talk about.
Anytime you call me, I will be here.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
So today we looked at the importance of understanding the unique challenges of living alone when we age, from managing health conditions to finding meaningful ways to maintain social connections. We need to pay special attention to our own personal situations or to those of our family and friends. Social isolation is one of the largest factors of depression, and this in turn can affect our physical well-being. To find out more about our show today, log on to the Farmington Valley Health District website, www.fvhd.org, or you can look on the VNA website for the Farmington Valley. You can find both of us at Facebook as well. And until next time, remember, your greatest wealth is your health.